Kat Timpf is one of those people who never expected her life to turn out the way it did. She used to say she would never get married or have kids. Her life was wild and unpredictable, full of chaos, late nights, and constant change. She was known for avoiding commitment and living life her own way. Then, everything changed when she met a man who completely flipped her world upside down. He wasn't famous or from the media world. He was quiet, grounded, and unexpected. Within 5 years, her life looked nothing like before. She went from sleeping on yoga mats and barely getting by to living in beautiful homes across several cities. But what surprised everyone most wasn't her success. It was what happened right before she gave birth to her first child. The timing was so strange that she called it a miracle that might have actually saved her life. Kat Timpf was born on October 29, 1988, in Detroit, Michigan. Her father, Daniel, worked long hours in a factory just to keep the family fed. Detroit was struggling then, with thousands of people losing their jobs and moving away. Her family lived in a small home in Wixom, always trying to make ends meet. Her dad would come home covered in grease and exhaustion, his hands rough from hard labor. Her mother, Anne-Marie, came from a large Polish Catholic family with 8 siblings. There was a lot of love in the house, but never enough money. Kat grew up understanding what it meant to struggle financially, and that experience never left her. School wasn't easy for her either. She was bullied constantly because she was loud, different, and outspoken. Other kids threw food at her and ignored her in group projects. When she was only 5 years old, doctors diagnosed her with ADHD and prescribed medication that she stayed on for nearly 30 years, up until her pregnancy in 2024. The medicine helped her focus but came with side effects that made her feel trapped. She also battled deep anxiety and began harming herself as a way to release pain. The worst part was that the adults around her saw the signs but didn't help. That early betrayal taught her that staying quiet never protected anyone. It's one of the reasons she later became such a strong defender of free speech. Words became her protection, her escape, and her identity. When everything else felt out of control, writing gave her power. Things began to shift when she went to Lutheran High School North in Macomb. The school was small, and that helped her finally find some balance. She joined the theater club and wrote for the school newspaper. She used her trauma and turned it into dark humor, performing jokes and writing stories that made people laugh and think. She still felt like an outsider, but now she had a voice. Her grades improved, and she started to find confidence. The school's Christian roots often clashed with her growing political beliefs. But it was here that she began to figure out who she truly was. Years later, 2014 became one of the darkest times of her life. Her mother, Anne-Marie, was diagnosed with a rare disease called cardiac amyloidosis, which affects the heart. It was so uncommon that doctors didn't recognize it until it was too late. Once they did, her mother had only 3 weeks to live. She passed away at 57 years old. Kat was just 26, broke, heartbroken, and living on a yoga mat in a small California apartment. Losing her mother left a hole in her heart that never really healed. Even years later, she made jokes about it online to cope. But the truth behind those jokes was raw pain. Kat's education had always been a source of pride. From 2006 to 2010, she studied English at Hillsdale College, graduating magna cum laude. She joined the Chi Omega sorority, wrote for the college paper, studied abroad in England, and interned at the Detroit News. Her parents couldn't help financially, so she worked different jobs to pay her way through school. It was during the recession, but she didn't quit. Her time at Hillsdale shaped her beliefs about freedom, politics, and individual responsibility, values that would later define her work. After college, she jumped into media work, starting with an internship at KFIA 640 in Los Angeles in 2012. She became a traffic reporter in a helicopter, waking up at 4 a.m. every morning. But she wasn't great at following directions, and since that was the main part of the job, she got fired. Still, she didn't give up. To stay legally in her unpaid internship, she enrolled in community college while also working late-night diner shifts to pay the bills. She barely slept for months, but kept going. In 2013, she got a chance to work for Campus Reform, reporting on college protests and censorship. She wrote about absurd events, like a campus canceling a petting zoo because of a camel or a fundraiser getting shut down over one misunderstood word. Her stories were funny but also sharp. calling out how free speech was disappearing on college campuses. That fight for open expression became her life's work. Even with her talent, she couldn't catch a break. Her unpaid Fox News internship ended because of labor laws in California. She lost her car and apartment and began driving up the coast looking for work. Most stations said no. Finally, the Washington Times gave her a tiny opportunity, a 2-minute radio segment. She made it count. Her confidence and sharp humor got people's attention, and those 2 minutes turned into her big break. Her personal life, however, was falling apart. Her boyfriend left and she was alone in Los Angeles. To cope, she turned to stand-up comedy. Open mic nights became her therapy. She talked about heartbreak, loneliness, and life's absurdities. Sometimes people laughed, sometimes they didn't. She bombed more than once. But every failure taught her something: timing, control, courage. That raw honesty became her strength. By 2014, she was writing for the International Business Times and winning recognition for her bold political takes. She later received the Robert Novak Journalism Fellowship, writing about how California's strict policies were shaping the country. She started publishing articles for Investor's Business Daily and National Review, earning spots on 30 Under 30 lists for conservative writers. Every step was proof of what persistence could do. Then came May 31st, 2015, the night that changed her career. Kat appeared on The Greg Gutfeld Show on Fox News for the first time. Her opening line, mocking celebrities who talked about climate change while flying private jets, went viral. Her joke about them having more carbon footprints than brain cells spread across social media, getting over 50,000 shares in one day. She instantly became a viewer favorite. Within 3 months, Fox hired her full-time. Her humor and honesty made her stand out. In 2017, she joined Fox News Specialists as a co-host. Her libertarian views often clashed with her co-hosts, especially after major national controversies. During one heated episode after Charlottesville, she called out white supremacy directly, saying there were no good people in that group. Viewers respected her for not holding back. The show's ratings climbed, but after a scandal involving another host, the show was canceled, leaving Kat in limbo again. In 2019, she launched her own show on Fox Nation called Sincerely, Kat. It started as a lighthearted talk show but soon became deeply personal. She opened up about her mental health, her eating disorders, and the pain of losing her parents. In one emotional episode, she removed her fake lashes and hair on camera, saying, "None of this is real." That raw honesty resonated with millions. The episode went viral and became one of Fox Nation's most watched programs. When Gutfeld launched in 2021, she was already a star. The show quickly became the most watched late-night program on TV, beating big network names. Her quick, cutting humor about cancel culture and modern politics went viral often. One of her jokes about cancel culture being a hobby for people with no hobbies reached over 8 million impressions online. But her success didn't erase her scars. On July 24, 2017, during an event in Brooklyn, a man approached her and dumped a bottle of water on her head. It was an attack. He had followed her, targeted her, and disappeared. She couldn't even give her planned speech that night. The experience left her shaken and afraid to appear in public for months. The man was never caught, but the moment changed her. It made her tougher. In 2023, she released her first book, You Can't Joke About That, which became an instant #1 bestseller. The book explored the power of humor to heal pain, even around dark topics like cancer, trauma, and death. She wrote about how society was becoming afraid to speak freely and how comedy was one of the last places people could tell the truth. A year later, she released her second book, I Used to Like You Until, which again became a New York Times bestseller. The book shocked readers when she revealed she had once been in a relationship with a woman. She wrote openly about how that relationship ended because of the woman's mother, who couldn't accept her daughter dating someone from Fox News. Kat said she didn't want to be labeled heterosexual or any label at all, sparking debate across political lines. When she discussed it on Joe Rogan's podcast, the episode exploded online, reaching millions of views. Kat has never shied away from controversy. Her early writing for National Review and Campus Reform already made waves. She criticized universities for promoting victimhood instead of resilience, and called out politicians she saw as hypocritical. Every time people tried to silence her, she only grew bolder. Even after facing public backlash for jokes, like when she once made a sarcastic comment about Star Wars fans that led to hate messages and threats, she refused to apologize. She said humor was supposed to be uncomfortable and that free speech mattered more than popularity. Behind all the jokes and the confidence, Kat has always been honest about her struggles. She's spoken about her battles with anxiety, depression, and ADHD. She said she sometimes hated herself more than any of her critics could. But through it all, she used humor as a lifeline, turning pain into laughter and fear into strength. Today, Kat Timpf is more than just a comedian or TV host. She's a voice for people who feel misunderstood, silenced, or scared to speak their minds. Her journey, from a bullied girl in Detroit to one of the most recognized women in late-night television, isn't about fame. It's about survival, honesty, and finding power in laughter. Her story proves that even in chaos, you can build a life worth laughing about. By 2024, Kat Timpf was living a life that looked nothing like the one she once imagined. Her second book came out while she was pregnant, and she said it was the best thing she had ever written. The woman who once swore she'd never slow down was now doing interviews with a baby on the way and a story that seemed almost unreal. She had been fired from radio jobs for refusing to censor herself, but instead of backing off, it made her even more determined to speak freely. Free speech wasn't just a belief for her, it was personal, and every attempt to silence her only pushed her further forward. By 2023, her career on Gutfeld shifted completely. She went from being a regular panelist to becoming a segment producer. She wasn't just showing up to talk anymore, she was helping create the show itself. One of her most unexpected segments was about her own egg freezing experience. It was raw, funny, and deeply personal. Turning something so private into comedy took guts, but that's what she did best. The internet went crazy for it, with over 2 million interactions online. Her honesty made people feel like she was one of them, even while her career and income skyrocketed. By the end of that year, she was earning more than $1 million annually. Then came her long interview with Joe Rogan in September 2024. For almost 3 hours, she spoke openly about everything: politics, media, and her personal boundaries. She told him that many MAGA supporters demanded full loyalty to Trump and said she could make $500,000 more a year if she pretended to agree with them. But she refused. She wasn't going to trade her voice for approval. The amount of hate mail she got after that interview was shocking. Some of it was so disturbing that her team had to screen her messages for threats. But she didn't stop. She said if she quit every time someone tried to scare her, she wouldn't have a career at all. By 2025, she took her comedy and truth-telling on the road with the I Used to Like You tour. It covered 47 cities across the country, and tickets sold out fast. In Minneapolis, every seat was gone in just over 3 minutes. Tickets cost over $200, and she earned almost $900,000 from the tour alone. During one stop, she broke down in front of the audience while talking about how her mother died just 6 months after her first appearance on Fox. She said she had to report news stories while secretly falling apart inside. For those who bought VIP passes, she gave something extra: 30 minutes of open conversation where she spoke directly, honestly, and sometimes tearfully. But her story wasn't just about fame or money. It started years earlier, back in 2015, when she wrote for The Federalist. She became known for investigating censorship on college campuses. One of her first viral articles was about a university in Pennsylvania that banned Christmas decorations, and it was shared over 2 million times. Over that year, she documented more than 70 cases of free speech violations on campuses and found that nearly 90% of them targeted conservatives. Her reports caught national attention, and one of them even led to a feature on The Daily Show. She made more than $100,000 that year. But what she really gained was a reputation for never backing down from the truth. Then in 2025, just hours before giving birth to her first child, her life took another dramatic turn. Doctors discovered she had stage 0 breast cancer. The news came only 15 hours before labor began. It was terrifying, but she called it a miracle because her pregnancy had led to tests that revealed the cancer early. She said, "My little dude might have saved my life." After giving birth, she went through a double mastectomy that March at Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital. She shared her recovery openly online, posting a hospital photo with the word "censored" written across her feet. Nearly 1 million people liked it. A few months later, she returned to Gutfeld, looking straight into the camera and saying with a laugh, "I'm boob-free and cancer-free." That moment became one of the show's most watched episodes, drawing more than 3 million viewers. For most of her life, Kat had said she wasn't made for traditional things. Marriage, monogamy, kids. She wanted nothing to do with any of it. She liked her freedom, her independence, and a bit of chaos. But everything changed in 2019 when she met a man named Cameron Friscia through a dating app. At first glance, he was the exact opposite of her type. Neat haircut, finance background, military past. He looked like someone who went to prep school and never got into trouble, which made her think their match was a mistake. But there was something about him that felt different. On their first date, he didn't brag about money or talk about fancy restaurants. Instead, he told her about his time in Afghanistan. He had served in the 101st Airborne Division near the border with Pakistan in 2012, one of the last American units still in combat before the U.S. withdrawal. He talked calmly about firefights, Taliban ambushes, and the fear of IEDs. She said later that listening to him felt like hearing someone from another planet. He had seen things she could barely imagine, and yet he carried himself with quiet strength. The more she learned about him, the more surprised she became. He wasn't just another Wall Street guy. He had graduated from West Point in 2009 and played lacrosse at the elite Choate Rosemary Hall before that. At West Point, he helped rebuild the Army lacrosse team during one of its toughest years. His life sounded like a movie script: athlete, soldier, hero, and she couldn't help but laugh at how different he was from anyone she'd ever dated. But what truly stood out was how much he respected her. Most men had tried to argue with her or tone her down. Cameron didn't. He listened, supported her opinions, and told her to never stop speaking her mind. When the pandemic hit in 2020, they had been dating for just a year. Lockdowns forced them to move in together, something she never thought she'd do. She had always said she'd never live with anyone before marriage, but being stuck indoors with him changed everything. They found peace in routine, quiet mornings, shared meals, long talks at night. For the first time, she didn't feel like she had to fight for space. Their connection deepened until one day he proposed. In August 2020, she showed off her engagement ring on the Greg Gutfeld show with her usual mix of humor and disbelief. She said later that she panicked when he proposed because she had spent years saying she didn't believe in forever. But she said yes anyway, not because she was sure of marriage, but because she believed in him. On May 1st, 2021, they got married in a way that only Kat could, completely unconventional. Instead of the usual wedding march, she walked down the aisle to Adam Sandler's "I Want to Grow Old with You." The ceremony was officiated by Lisa Kennedy Montgomery, and a neon sign at the reception read, "Till Death." Even her vows were unique. She promised to stay herself, never tone down her personality, and never stop joking. On Instagram, she captioned her wedding post, "Hell froze over." After the wedding, something unexpected happened. She didn't feel trapped like she thought she would. Instead, she felt free. She said marriage gave her more freedom than she'd ever had because she no longer felt like she had to prove anything to anyone. That sense of freedom slowly opened her up to something she'd never considered: motherhood. For years, she had said kids weren't for her, but being with Cameron made her rethink everything. In February 2025, she gave birth to their first child, and just hours before that, she learned about her cancer diagnosis. What could have been the worst day of her life turned out to be the one that saved her. Her son's arrival brought both joy and the discovery that let her begin treatment early. In her own words, she said, "He didn't just give me motherhood, he gave me time." After surgery, she recovered with her usual humor, joking about her scars and posting a photo of the cake her co-hosts sent that read, "Boob-free is the new beautiful." Her husband stayed mostly out of the spotlight. Cameron rarely gives interviews and doesn't appear on Fox. His only major public appearance was a radio segment in 2021, where he discussed the Kabul airport bombing from a soldier's perspective. He spoke about tactical errors and leadership failures with the precision of someone who still thought like a commander. Despite his serious past, at home he was different. He was the one who cooked dinner, even though his financial career at Coatu Management earned him millions each year. Together, they built a life that blended humor, love, and unexpected calm. They have a cat named Cheen and a dog named Carl. Between their homes in Manhattan, the Hamptons, Los Angeles, and Miami, they live a lifestyle that feels worlds away from the days when she slept on a yoga mat in a tiny apartment. For fun, she rents luxury cars, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, and spends small fortunes just to laugh at how far she's come. In her 2024 book, she revealed a short relationship with a woman, which ended not because of controversy, but because of the woman's feminist mother, who couldn't accept her daughter dating a Fox News personality. It was one more example of how her life never fit into neat boxes. Conservative but rebellious, outspoken but vulnerable, strong yet open about her fears, Kat Timpf became all of it at once. She used to say she'd never get married, never have kids, never live a conventional life. Now, she's a wife, a mother, a best-selling author, and a cancer survivor who laughs at everything life throws at her. From surviving bullying and poverty to becoming one of the most recognized women in late-night television, her story proves that people can change without losing who they are. She may have built her career on defying expectations, but her greatest twist came when she embraced the very things she thought she'd never want. And through it all, she never stopped being herself, sharp, funny, fearless, and real.